Okay, so hi there all. We're now on our next video in our playlist or our course in Introduction to Statistics. What we're going to talk about today is about the data collection procedure. So how can we collect data? Again, we define statistics as copy of data. Okay, copy. And C here stands for collection. Remember? Um, O means organization, P means presentation rather. A means analysis, and I means um, interpretation. So in statistics, what we need to do first is to collect data in order for us to continue the process. Okay. So what are the different data collection procedures? So we have technically four of them. So first, what we have is interview method. Then we have the questionnaire method. This is actually the survey method, the one which is always used or usually used. We have the experimentation and we have the observation, and we'll be talking about them one by one, the pros and cons and such. Now let's talk about the interview method. So the interview method, by the name itself, I think you know what it means. So there is an interaction between the interviewer and the respondent, that is the researcher and the the element of the study. So there is a direct interaction with you guys. So the most important method of data collection, because why is it the most important? Because you can have you can you get to know your respondents and you get to talk to them in a personal level, and then you can hence you can get more in-depth information or data from them. Okay, we can generate more in-depth information. And also some clarifications if ever the respondent is unsure about the question. There are some clarifications which can be done, okay, during the interview process. Okay, so those are the pros for the interview. For the cons, of course, it's time consuming and it is costly. Um, since there are some cases where you need to schedule that interview with you, that respondents, they're not all free. Okay, some of them depends on your study. Some of them have work. Some of them have things to do, and you need to schedule for that. That's time consuming. It's costly because what for one thing, you need to entice your respondents practically, give them tokens or give them something that they will say yes to your interview session, right? And also seldom you need to interview them more than once, so you need more more time for them, more time rather, more interview sessions to get to know more data from them, or in order to generate more data from them. So that's why it's time consuming and it's costly. And also respondents may be influenced by the interviewer. Okay, who if you're the interviewer, the responses may be influenced by that. Okay, so that's for the interview. For the questionnaire method, or this is the most common one. That is, we use the survey questionnaire usually. Survey questionnaire. Okay, so there is no interaction between the facilitator and the respondent, that is the researcher, and the elements in the population. So there's no interaction. Okay. Respondents personally answers the question on the survey form. So what we have here are the survey forms. So they answer it personally, and these are some advantages for the questionnaire. So number one, it's less costly and it's less time consuming. You can generate a lot of questionnaires, or you can generate a lot of data from a given smaller time, since what you need to do is just to give out the data, give out the questionnaire, and then wait for them to reply it, to give it back to you. So it's less costly. You may just print it out or send it via Google Forms or email. You can do that also. Okay, number three, respondents are not influenced by the interviewer because there's no interaction between you, and respondents answer the questions with relative anonymity. So they can answer it more truthfully. Here's the word that I'm looking for. Truthfully, because they are not known that they were the ones answering it. So it's anonymous, pretty anonymous. Okay, so those are the advantages. For the disadvantages, it is not effective if the respondent is illiterate. Okay, so if they cannot understand on the questionnaire what really is meant, because they may misinterpret the questions, and if that's the case, they may think of it as a different in a different perspective and answer it whole differently from the one that you want, from the data that you want. Clarifications about questions cannot be made since there's no interaction between you and the respondent if you're the researcher. Number four, intended respondents may not personally answer the forms. They may request other people to respond, and that's a very bad thing to happen if ever in your data that happens, because um, who knows who will be these people to answer the questionnaire. So what if the answers from that other person deviate from his or her personal answer? So that will be a mess in your study that will really affect your conclusion of the study. And of course, there is low rate of returns. For example, if you will give out 500 survey questions or survey forms, don't expect that after a week it will be exact for 500. So expect only like 70%, 80% of those survey forms that will be returned. So that's it for the questionnaire or the survey questionnaire. Third is the experimentation. So we use this in usually in experimental researches, obviously. Of course, I forgot. We use the interview method usually in qualitative studies, and we use the questionnaires or the survey questionnaires usually in quantitative studies. Okay? So experimentation for experimental studies. So we have here again interview. I forgot to mention this. Interview usually used in qualitative. Questionnaires usually used in quantitative. Experimentation used for experimental. So what is experimentation? So a controlled study in which the researcher attempts to understand cause and effect relationships between variables. So that is how we do. There's a controlled study. So the study is controlled in the sense that the researcher controls what? Okay, the researcher controls how subjects are assigned to groups and how treatments each group receives. So that's how it is controlled. Okay, that's how it is controlled. So that's for experimentation. This is where the dependent variables, and the independent variables come in. Dependent variables come in. Also the control variables if you want. So this is where it comes in. Okay. Okay, now so that is for the experimentation. Let's proceed now to the last, that is observation. So observation is pretty much the same with experimentation, because it also attempts to understand cause and effect relationships. Only that, unlike experimentations, observations is not able to, or if you're going to use observation as your data collection procedure, you are not able to do these things which we can do in experiments. So you are not able to do, or to control rather, how subjects are assigned to groups, and with what treatments will be used in those groups. So we are not to control that in an observation study, because we're only observing. These are usually used in behavioral or attitudinal studies. That is, if your study is more on psychology, or in with the cousin branches or the like subjects or fields. So in psychology we use observation. Okay. Okay, if you study behavioral and attitudinal studies. So that's it. Just as a recap, we have four data collection procedures. Number one is interview. Okay, interview is usually used in qualitative studies. Number two is questionnaire. We use that usually in quantitative studies. And we have experimentations, usually used in experimental studies. We have observation here, used in usually in psychological studies. So that's the end of our data collection procedures. Um, well, that's the end of our C. Okay, again, in statistics, we have the COPA, COPI. So since statistics is a branch of math that deals with the collection, organization, presentation, analysis, and interpretation of data, numerical data, in fact. So our C is this. So that is how we collect data. Okay, provided we have the sample already, or we know our sample already. Okay, so that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you'd like and subscribe. And yeah, see you soon. I will be surely creating more. Okay, thank you very much.